And today I would like to show you a spinach quiche. Now, of course, being a vegetarian, Love and Peace Kitchen, we cannot use egg, and so we have to substitute for that. But in the meantime, I'm going to make up my pastry. Now, I always make a little bit extra and then keep some aside. I can freeze it, I don't have to. I can possibly use it the next day or use it to make something else. So I have 3 cups of plain flour in here, and I have just added a few toasted sesame seeds. That just really does something for the pastry. Even a sweet pastry, certain sweet pastries, if you add a toasted sesame seed, can really enhance the dish. So in here I have my 3 cups of flour, and I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt, now I'm going to mix that in. And if you can work for a good short crust pastry, you can basically work on, per cup of flour you're going to use 100 grams of fat. Now, of course, the fat will vary according to whether you're vegan, vegetarian, but I'm going to use a margarine, which is locally available, and I'm going to use 300 grams because I have got 3 cups. Okay, so this margarine has been out of the fridge for a while. It's a little bit softened. Ideally with pastry, the colder it is, the better you're going to work with it. It doesn't like to be hot. What I often do is, if, for example, I have to pull margarine out of the deep freeze because suddenly I have to make something in a hurry, I use this grater. It is a large hold grater, and grate the fat into the flour. That works extremely well because it's already basically there and needs very little work. I've cut the margarine into the flour, and I'm now going to use my hands to rub the fat into the flour. Right, so here I have the pastry in preparation. The fat has been rubbed into the flour. Now, if, for example, it's a cooler day today, but if, for example, if it had been really hot today, I would have refrigerated the flour first, made sure it's really cold, worked with much colder margarine, and just to make sure that the pastry would be made correctly. So now, this is a little tip. Why I use it is because my mother had this most outstanding cook called Aaron Nyanetti. And I suppose if I was inspired at all to cook, it was through him. It was very difficult to learn anything from him because he just simply did it. And one had to sort of sit in the kitchen for hours watching or just chatting to him. He was a headman, and so a very interesting man, and his dreams were often particularly significant. He really had dreams that told the future. So I'm going to add a tablespoon of cider vinegar to this, because this was something that he did, and he made the most superb pastry. And it's going to need a couple of teaspoons of cold water just to combine. I'm going to start off with just a couple and add as I need to go along. But you probably find that with 3 cups of flour, you're going to need about 4 tablespoons of water. And I'm going to butter my quiche pan with the paper from the margarine, so not waste anything. So let me combine that now. You can see it's going to need another couple of tablespoons of cold water. So far I've got the 1 tablespoon of cider vinegar, and I've now added 4 tablespoons of water. Of course, if you reduce the amount of fat, and that's up to you, you know, if you feel that you'd like a pastry with less fat, you can do that work on, say, 80 grams, but you will then need to add a little bit more liquid. But you can see it's coming together now quite nicely. As soon as it starts to adhere to itself quite well, you know that your pastry is ready. It's formed quite nicely. And you don't need to overwork. You don't want your hands to be too hot either when you work with your pastry. So it's quite nicely combined now. And I'm going to just halve it because I'm not going to need the full amount for one pastry case. So this one piece I can actually put into the fridge or into the deep freeze and use at a later date. So to roll it out, very simple again. I'm going to flour my surface. The quiche pan is round, so I need a round piece of pastry. Flatten it slightly and start off with a nice circle. Add a little bit of flour to my rolling pin, and then I can start to work the pastry. Oops, that's a little bit of paper there. As you swivel it around, you can move it onto the bits of flour that is on the table, on the surface, to ensure that you don't end up with your pastry sticking to the table. A little bit here, onto the rolling pin again. And when you feel it's about the right size, then you can just roll it onto the rolling pin. And pop it into your tray. Just a little, haven't done such a wonderful job here, but you can press it into your tray. Pastry shrinks a bit sometimes, so you know I like to press it down quite well. Now you might find that you've got a little bit more one side than the other, and one side might be a little bit short. Then just trim that off and bring a piece across. Put it down at the base, and then work from the base upwards to get it even up there. And then you can slice that off as well, so that you've got a nicely formed pastry. I'm going to collapse the spinach. It only takes a few minutes. It's been chopped and washed, so it's really good. The spinach also came from the Township Gardens, from the Sally Foundation, the marvelous Yvonne Berkhout, who is doing the most wonderful job. I cannot compliment her enough. She is absolutely fantastic, and at the moment with the coronavirus, she is delivering vegetables to a gated community and looking after all the over 70-year-olds. She is terrific. So I'm going to pop that onto the stove and collapse that. And here I have my collapsed spinach, and I've added some lemon rind. I think lemon rind goes fantastically with spinach. So I'm now going to mix up the mixture which will form the quiche. So this is chana flour. I have a cup and a half of chana flour in here, some salt, some freshly ground black pepper, and to that I'm going to add a pinch of asafoetida, hing, a teaspoon of cumin, and about a quarter teaspoon of garam masala. I've got very good garam masala, which came from the market in Jaipur. So I'm going to give that a good mix. And I'm sorry, apologize to the vegans. I'm using milk today, but of course you can use coconut milk or any other milk. And I'm going to measure out a cup of milk into this. So I'm going to add into this a good teaspoon of baking powder. Give that a good mix. I'm mixing it firstly into the milk so that it mixes into the chana flour really well. It's fairly thick, so I'm going to add another half cup of milk. Because obviously we don't want it too watery, because we want it to hold its shape and not be sloppy. You can say you use 1.5 cups of chana flour, then the same of milk. So that's looking a lot better, and it's got the flavors in it. Now, because I'm baking for somebody else, for an elderly woman with very conservative taste, I'm going to add cheese. This is a strong local cheese, Sedgemoor. It's a very sharp cheddar, so I don't have to add too much of it. I'm going to mix that in. That'll give it the kind of flavor that she can relate to. And then I'm going to add that to our spinach. And really, you know, one of the things from the Love and Peace Kitchen is that we need to cook with certain consciousness, to bring a certain energy into the food. So we know that the food is affected by vibrations. So we tend to work in quite a quiet kitchen, and to work softly and gently. So that is all mixed in. And here I have my pastry case. You can see the little dark patches. That is the roasted sesame seed, which goes really well with the spinach. I'm going to pour that in. And level it out. And then using my very large old grater, I'm going to just pop a few gratings of cheese on. And here's the quiche ready to go into the oven. It has very traditional flavors because I'm cooking for a very conservative 94-year-old.